In the $20 million Cathedral of Catherine's Crown stable, the Kentucky Derby favorite Northern Crown stood at dusk. Anthony, a third-generation farrier, ran his calloused palm over the stallion's left hind hoof and felt something wrong.
What do you think you are doing with that horse? You shoe donkeys? Leave the doctoring to me.
This horse has a gut twist. 2 hours, and he'll be dead on this floor.
The owner, Catherine, stepped into the stall, her tweed cap trembling as she looked from the vet to the farrier.
What? What on earth are you saying?
He's shifting weight off his left hind, barely putting it down. That's not a shoe problem. That's laminitis from an undiagnosed gut twist.
Laminitis? You've been reading too many old wives' tales. You are a horseshoe guy. Don't panic the owner with your guesses.
Dr. Joshua, perhaps we should at least run a test.
Absolutely not. I am the vet here. Anthony, get out of my stable before I have you escorted off the property.
Anthony lowered the hoof gently, his jaw set. He picked up his leather tool bag and walked toward the exit. But at the door, he turned, eyes fixed on the horse. He wouldn't go far. Outside the stable, Anthony sat on a bench and opened a creased photo. His grandfather, a black farrier who shod champions in the 40s.
You told me, Grandpa, the hoof is a map. If a horse limps, look deeper than the shoe.
He'd passed down a manual gut manipulation from the 1947 Belmont, a technique modern vets had never seen. In her office, Catherine replayed Anthony's words. Joshua had dismissed him, but her gut didn't.
Catherine, you are not seriously worried about a horseshoer's guess. Northern Crown is sound. I gave him a light sedative.
Then why did the horse lean? Why did that farrier's eyes carry no doubt at all?
Through the stable window, Anthony watched the stallion stand too still. He checked his pocket watch. 1 hour down.
The gut twist would be advancing, cutting off blood. I have to stay. I have to be ready.
Catherine stood before the stall. Studying Northern Crown's shallow breaths, she pressed a hand to her own chest, cold.
See? Sleeping like a baby. I've seen 1,000 of these. Nothing to fear.
A young stable hand had spotted Anthony near the equipment shed and scurried to find Dr. Joshua.
What? He's still here. That horseshoer has no respect for veterinary authority.
Joshua strode into Catherine's office, his face flushed with indignation.
Catherine, I want that man forcibly removed. He's trespassing with unfounded claims that could upset the entire team.
If that's what protocol requires, very well. I won't have him agitate the horse.
A security guard strode into the barn, scanning for the farrier. Anthony ducked out of sight behind the tack room door.
I can't be caught. Grandpa, that horse is running out of time, and I am the only one who knows.
Anthony climbed the ladder to the hayloft, crouching low among the bales where he could still see the stallion's stall below. The guard made a quick pass, saw nothing amiss, and reported the premises clear.
Good. He's run off. That's the last we'll see of that superstitious farrier. Now focus on the Derby, Catherine, and stop worrying.
From the hayloft, Anthony saw what Joshua had missed, the stallion's pulse fluttering visibly in the jugular, a faint tremor in the left hind.
That flutter means the gut twist is tightening. He's compensating less every minute.
Joshua entered the stall with a confident stride, checking vitals superficially. The horse's dilated eye told a different story.
Is everything all right?
Perfect. He's resting beautifully.
Catherine pressed her lips together, but didn't argue. She turned to leave, her boots hesitating on the brick floor. At the end of the aisle, she glanced back. Her eyes caught the empty farrier station, Anthony's tool bag gone, his warning still hanging in the air.
He said 2 hours. It's been nearly that.
The barn fell silent again. From the loft, Anthony watched the minute hand crawl toward the final hour.
I can't wait much longer. He won't last without me.
Anthony pressed his back against the hay bale. He opened the pocket watch again. 90 minutes had passed, the final countdown closing in.
He closed his eyes and rehearsed his grandfather's technique. Find the hollow behind the last rib. Press, hold, wait for the release.
In the vet room, Joshua leaned against the counter, coffee in hand, an assistant listening with a smirk.
Honestly, these superstitious farriers, they see a limp and invent a catastrophe. I dealt with him.
He ticked a box on the checkup chart, sound, no concerns, then added a note, Farrier Anthony Wells, trespassed, removed.
His laugh is drilling into my skull. I can't lose focus. The gut twist is still tightening.
Anthony pressed his palms together, feeling the ghost of his grandfather's grip guiding the motion.
If the horse even stumbles, I'll be there first. A shot of Banamine, and I am the miracle worker.
You are not listening to the horse, Joshua. You are not even looking. And in a few minutes, you won't be able to look away.
The pocket watch ticked past the 2-hour mark. Anthony's hands, resting on his knees, flexed in practiced sequence one final time. 2 hours and 10 minutes since Anthony's warning. From the hayloft, he watched the stallion's flanks. The breathing had gone shallow. Each inhale a short, sharp jerk.
That's not sedation. The gut twist is cutting off the diaphragm.
Catherine drifted past the stall once more, her fingers trailing the cool brass nameplate. Her footsteps slowed.
That breathing. It's not right. She's not resting. She's laboring.
Before she could speak, Joshua materialized at her elbow, foam pressed to his ear.
Catherine, the Derby committee's on the line. They need a decision on the owner's seating chart now.
She looked back at the stall, the horse's ribs now heaving visibly, but Joshua gripped her arm.
He's dragging her away when she's a heartbeat from seeing the truth.
I'll check the horse the second this call ends. I swear. You know I'd never let anything happen to him.
Behind him, Northern Crown let out a wet, shuddering exhale. The air around him turned cold. From the hayloft, Anthony watched the stallion paw the straw, a desperate, rhythmic scrape. He tried to lie down and couldn't.
Grandpa said, when the horse tries to lie down but can't, you've got minutes. I can't wait any longer. I have to move now, even if it costs me everything.
He shifted toward the hayloft ladder, heart hammering, when a sound froze him. The clack of heavy boots on the brick floor below. The security guard was back, patrolling the aisle, just beneath the loft.
Number, not now. If he catches me, the horse is dead.
Anthony pressed flat into the hay, pulling his hat down, making himself weightless. The guard paused directly below, and a flashlight beam licked the rafters, searching.
Don't look up. Don't look up. Please, Grandpa, don't let him look up.
The light swept over the bales, inches from his boots. The guard grunted, clicked off the flashlight, and continued his patrol, but didn't leave. The guard leaned against a stall door, thumbing his phone, chatting about a missed shift, completely blind to the horse laboring 10 feet away. Anthony inched through the hay, each stalk a potential betrayer, until he was directly above the stallion's heaving frame. The guard ended the call, stretched, and with a final disinterested glance around the empty barn, headed out to the parking lot. Anthony swung a leg toward the ladder and froze. The stable door crashed open, and Catherine rushed in, her cap askew, terror carving new lines on her face.
I knew it the whole time.
Northern Crown's eyes had gone glassy, unseeing, his proud head drooping almost to the straw. A low, liquid groan vibrated up from his chest.
Joshua, get in here now.
In the loft, Anthony's heart hammered once. He threw himself onto the ladder and descended faster than care, boots banging wood. He hit the brick floor just as Catherine's scream still hung in the air, and no other footsteps answered.
Catherine, don't let him lie down. Hold his halter. Keep him standing. I'll work the abdomen.
Joshua exploded through the vet room door, a loaded syringe in his fist, his face twisted with fury at the sight of Anthony beside the horse.
I'll sedate him. You, out of my stall.
No, that second sedative will stop his heart. You'll kill this horse.
Catherine's eyes darted between them, the vet she'd trusted and the farrier she'd thrown out. her hands twisted in the horse's halter.
Security. Remove this man immediately. He has no legal right to touch this animal.
Before anyone could move, Northern Crown let out a low, liquid groan, and his whole body swayed, front hooves lifting off the straw for one terrible second.
How long?
Minutes. He's dying right now. I can save him, but you have to trust me.
Joshua's mouth opened, but no command came out. The syringe in his hand trembled. Catherine stared at the horse's glassy eyes, then at Anthony's steady hands. The stallion's legs began to buckle. Joshua lunged forward, syringe raised. But before the needle could touch skin, Northern Crown's legs folded like a broken table. The stallion crashed to the straw with a sound that stopped every breath in the barn.
No.
Joshua stumbled backward, the syringe still clutched in his trembling fingers, his face a mask of disbelief. Anthony was already on his knees beside the horse, his apron tangling in the straw, his hands steady, even as the stallion's eyes rolled back.
Catherine, I can save him, but I need you to trust me right now.
Catherine's tears cut tracks through the dust on her cheeks. Her chin trembled once. Then she nodded. 2 hours ago, she had thrown this man out of her stable. Now she was handing him the life of her $4 million champion. Anthony pressed his palms together for a single heartbeat, then placed them on the horse's sweat-slick abdomen. The stallion's breathing was shallow, wet. The surgical team was still 11 minutes out. His hands found the hollow behind the last rib, the spot his grandfather had taught him 70 years ago. And he began. Anthony drove his hands in a rhythm only a farrier could feel. 3 beats press, 2 release, his grandfather's metronome from the 1947 Belmont.
Come on, boy. Surrender the twist. Let the blood back in.
Catherine gripped the stall door, her heart pounding against her ribs as she watched the old man work with a certainty that felt ancient. The clock on the wall hammered each second. 5 minutes down, the horse's flank barely rose. Then a deep, liquid gurgle rolled through the abdomen, under Anthony's right palm, a sound that made Joshua flinch.
There. That's the shift. Keep the rhythm. Don't lose it.
The stallion's hind leg gave a sudden, involuntary twitch, and the distended belly softened by a finger's width.
A muscle spasm. It proves nothing.
Catherine didn't even look at him. Her eyes stayed on the horse's flank, waiting for the next breath. Anthony pressed upward, tracing the map his grandfather had drawn in the straw 70 years ago, and held. 8 minutes. The stallion's groan deepened, and his hind legs kicked weakly, stirring dust. Joshua's voice cut through.
It's not working. You are just torturing him.
Catherine turned her head slowly, her glare burning colder than any words. Joshua's mouth snapped shut. Anthony's arms burned, sweat stinging his eyes, but he kept the rhythm. 3 and 2, 3 and 2, as if his grandfather's hands were on his. Then, the horse's ribcage lifted, a massive, shuddering exhale, and the front legs flexed, pulling inward. The swollen abdomen visibly softened under his fingers. The gurgle turned into a long, rolling release of pressure. Catherine's hand flew to her mouth. A sound escaped her, half gasp, half sob. Anthony's hands paused, trembling over the horse's belly. He didn't look up, didn't declare victory. He just breathed with the animal. The stallion's eye, which had been glazed, slowly focused on the farrier's hat. The barn was silent, except for the horse's deepening breaths. 9 minutes had passed. Anthony shifted his weight, repositioning his hands to a deeper spot behind the last rib, a place his grandfather had warned should only be pressed once.
One more deep press. If it doesn't unlock now, he's gone. Grandpa, guide me.
He bore down with his whole weight, a final, relentless push into the stallion's side. A sound erupted from the horse's abdomen, a wet, percussive gurl that filled the barn like a gunshot. Northern Crown let out a groan that seemed to rip from under the earth, his entire frame convulsing once, then went completely still. Catherine's hands flew to her mouth, her cry caught in her throat. her face blanched the color of the stable chalk. No one breathed. Even the dust stopped swirling. Anthony's hands were still pressed into the motionless belly, his own heart hammering against his ribs as the seconds stretched.
Is he?
The great stallion lay there, utterly still, a monument of black muscle and silence. 10 minutes were gone. Then, like a storm rolling back, Northern Crown drew in a massive, shuddering breath. His ribcage lifted once, twice, then settled into a deep, even rhythm. Catherine's legs gave out. She sank against the stall door, one hand pressed to her heart, the other covering her mouth as a raw sob tore free. The stallion's eye, which had been rolling wild, focused on Anthony's face with a clarity that hadn't been there all afternoon. Anthony slumped back against the stall wall, his hands shaking so hard he had to press them against his thighs. 11 minutes. Exactly. The clock on the wall ticked past the 11th minute. 2 hours ago, Catherine had thrown him out. Now he had given her a lifetime.
Your granddaddy taught me that.
In the distance, a siren wailed, then another. The surgical team was finally closing in.
I almost threw away a $4 million horse and a man worth more than all of it.
He's not out of danger yet, but he'll live. Thank you, Grandpa.
Catherine moved to kneel beside Anthony, her shadow falling over the stallion's glistening coat. No words yet, just breath. The barn doors flew open, and the surgical team flooded in. A gray-haired surgeon at the front, his face set for a code red. He froze 2 strides in, staring at the horse calmly breathing. He dropped to one knee beside Northern Crown, running quick, expert hands over the flank. Then he looked up at Catherine and Anthony, still kneeling in the straw. He asked, who kept this horse alive? Catherine's hand rose, trembling, and pointed at Anthony. The surgeon followed her finger as if it were a compass needle. The surgeon stared at Anthony's thick, calloused palms, the same hands that shod horses and saved them. He shook his head in disbelief. Then he stood and barked to his team. Prep him for surgery, gentle as a foal. He turned to Catherine, his voice dropping. Ma'am, that man saved a $4 million animal with nothing but his bare hands and a knowledge that died before I was born. In the shadows, Joshua's face went slack. The syringe he'd been clutching slipped from his fingers and disappeared into the straw. Anthony didn't hear the praise. He just watched Northern Crown's deep, steady breaths, his own hands still quivering against his thighs. Catherine leaned close to the surgeon, whispering 3 words that would reshape the entire stable. Then she turned back to Anthony, her gaze sharp as a blade. The surgical team eased Northern Crown onto a hydraulic stretcher, his deep breaths fogging the cool barn air. Anthony stayed on the straw, too drained to rise. In the bustle, Joshua saw his chance. He edged backward toward the side door, his scrubs blending into the shadows. Catherine's head turned, her eyes finding him like a hawk sighting a wounded rabbit. Her face became stone.
Don't go anywhere.
The words hit Joshua like a halter snap. He froze mid-step, his face draining of what little color remained. From his hay bale, Anthony caught Catherine's eye. He gave a slow, deliberate nod, nothing more. She had this. The surgeon, oblivious to the frozen tableau, guided the stretcher out of the barn and into the waiting ambulance. Joshua tried to form words, but Catherine raised a single hand. Not yet. The silence was worse than any scream. She turned her back to him, her focus returning to Anthony. Her expression was unreadable, but her shoulders were set for war. Anthony took a long, slow breath, his hands finally still. The reckoning was coming, but not yet. For now, the horse was alive. The surgeon reappeared at the barn door, still pulling off his gloves. He called out across the silent crowd of stable hands, "The gut twist is fully resolved. He will race again." Catherine stepped into the center of the aisle, her boots echoing on the brick. All eyes turned to her, including Joshua's, still frozen against the wall.
You almost killed a champion because you couldn't listen to a man who knows more than you ever will. You are done here.
Joshua's face went pale. His mouth opened, then closed. The assembled staff didn't move, their silence forming a final judgment.
Get off this property now. Clear out your office before sundown.
He turned, stumbled toward the side door, and disappeared into the dusk without a word. Not one person followed. Catherine walked to the hay bale where Anthony still sat, his hands resting on his knees. He looked up at her, exhaustion and peace mingling in his eyes. She sat beside him, her tweed cap askew, the weight of the day settling into a quiet understanding between them.
I am naming you head of equine welfare. Your word will be law in the stable.
Anthony didn't answer for a long moment. Then he removed his hat, placed it on the bale beside him, and nodded. Catherine dropped to her knees in the straw, taking his thick, calloused hands in her own. The tweed cap slipped from her head, forgotten.
I meant every word. No one will ever dismiss your voice again. I have a blank contract here. Name your terms.
Anthony looked at the paper, then out the window where the last light was draining from the sky. His voice came out rough.
I only want one thing. A scholarship in my grandfather's name for boys who want to learn farriery the old way.
Catherine's eyes glistened. She had expected a demand for wealth or power. Not this.
Done. I'll fund it right now. The Ezekiel Wells Farrier Scholarship. Every year, for as long as this stable stands.
Anthony's composure finally broke. He pressed one hand over his eyes, his shoulders shaking just once.
You hear that, Grandpa? Your name's going on the wall.
By the next morning, a new brass plaque gleamed on the office door. Anthony Wells, head of equine welfare, and beneath it, a smaller plate. In honor of Ezekiel Wells, a farrier who taught us to listen. 5 months later, under a flawless Kentucky sky, 150,000 voices rose as the Derby gates crashed open. Northern Crown broke clean and settled behind the leaders, his black coat gleaming like obsidian fire. Anthony watched from the rail, his grandfather's hat pulled low. They rounded the far turn, and the jockey asked. The stallion surged, swallowing lengths like a beast unchained. The roar became a hurricane. He hit the wire 2 lengths clear, the $4 million miracle who had lain dying in the straw 11 minutes away from a forgotten grave. In the winner's circle, Catherine threw her arms around the horse's neck, tears cutting tracks through her dusting of champagne. Anthony stood slightly apart, the same leather apron beneath his jacket, the felt hat worn and stained. He was no longer the man they threw out. Catherine caught his eye and beckoned. He stepped forward, and the cameras erupted like stars. He tipped that old hat upward, letting the sun warm his face, and whispered into the deafening cheers.
This one's for you, old man.
Northern Crown lowered his great head and nuzzled the farrier's shoulder, as if he, too, remembered the hands that had pulled him back from the dark. In his workshop's quiet, Anthony oiled his grandfather's farrier tools, now hanging on a wall of honor. Beside them, a news clipping showed Northern Crown crossing the Derby finish, the date still fresh. He paused, touching a worn photograph. His grandfather, young, holding a horseshoe. He lifted the photo, the glass catching the dim light.
They called me just a horseshoe guy. But you taught me, Grandpa. The hoof never lies.
He set the photo beside his grandfather's old hat, hanging on a brass hook. His hands rested on the Derby program from that afternoon, now soft and dog-eared.
We did it, old man. You and me, across all those years. We did it.
Through the window, the distant glow of Catherine's Crown stable marked the paddock. He lifted the cloth and polished the next tool, a rhythm steady as a heartbeat he'd once coaxed back. In the paddock, Catherine walked Northern Crown as the sun traced low gold across the bluegrass. The stallion's head bobbed gently, his breath steaming in the cooling air.
He almost didn't get this sunset. Neither did I.
She paused, letting the lead rope go slack, and looked back toward the stable. A single square of warm light glowed from Anthony's workshop window.
That man saved my horse with nothing but his hands and a ghost. He deserves every sunset he wants.
A soft smile settled on her face, the kind that comes when a debt is finally honored. Northern Crown nickered low, pressing his muzzle against her shoulder. She scratched behind his ear, then turned and walked on toward the barn. The light in the workshop flickered once, then held steady. In the workshop, Anthony's hands lay still on the Derby program, the paper soft from being held too many times. His fingers traced the embossed date, feeling each number as if it were a heartbeat. The workbench still smelled of old iron and leather, a century of Farriers pressed into the grain. He lifted his gaze to the hat on the wall, stained, worn, hanging exactly where his grandfather had placed it. Beside it, the photograph, Ezekiel Wells, young, holding the first horseshoe he ever forged.
You started this, Grandpa. All I ever did was keep the rhythm you taught me.
The workshop was quiet now, the anvil cold, the tools oiled and ranked in perfect order. Through the window, the stable yard drew into dusk, the paddock fence a dark line against the fading sky. A single light came on in the main barn, warm as a hearth. Anthony folded the program, pressed it flat, and allowed himself a smile.